Here's a hot take, if you're a soulless AAA game developer, that is. Modern day AAA games should cost no more than $30. And when I say $30, I do not mean $39.99. I mean $29.99, okay? That is $30. That's number one. Two, never more. Your games are literally not worth the money, the time, the anything. And I'm being generous at $30. Honestly, you should probably cost as much as half a Silk Song at this point because you're not worth it, okay? You're gonna oversaturate your games with microtransactions. There's gonna be some kind of battle pass. There's gonna be some kind of roadmap. There's gonna be some kind of shitty skins. There's gonna be some kind of currency conversion. You do not deserve to cost even close to $40. That's the reality, okay? And if you're gonna cost 60, 70, 80, oh well, piracy is an option still.
I've heard you, and with today's story, it seems the rest of the industry is also beginning to hear you. Now, this year started with the fear that gaming is getting more expensive. Microsoft and Nintendo pushed the ceiling to $80, an impossibly high ask, especially as everything else has got more.
I cannot wait for the Nintendo collapse. That is one of my biggest collapses that I'm waiting for, and it has to happen, okay? Pokemon, all of those things, Nintendo, Sony, all of them are just waiting to collapse. And when it happens, my god, am I gonna be happy.
More and more pricey. But elsewhere in the industry, something quieter is happening. And it's this. The games that you are actually buying, well, we've got the data about them. And as it turns out, they're getting cheaper. $100 for Grand Theft Auto 6.
Oh, of course they're getting cheaper. Look at this. Name me a single AAA game that has not gone on at least a 30 to 40% discount after a month of being launched. Can you remember a single... Maybe Battlefield hasn't gone on discount yet, but pretty much everything else has already gone on discount. Some games, some AAA games go 20% discount as fast as week 2. That is insane.
That was the rumor that kicked off this year's anxiety about game prices. It was one that Take-Two have been happy to downplay, if not outright refute. But with...
I heard about this, and if you would remember, I made a video being extremely happy about GTA 6 being $100. And I was extremely happy, and still am happy about the prospect of AAA games going $100 now. I really hope it still happens, because that is the fastest way to make all of these shitty companies go bankrupt. It's simply the fastest way. And I like to be efficient, okay? So, again, I will absolutely not shed a single tear about any of these game companies going bankrupt, going under, or having to close up 80% of their shop. That will actually make me extremely happy, because I'm a person who firmly believes in, you know, getting what you deserve. And these games hate us. Why would I ever be sad? Why would I ever not be happy about some studio closing that literally uses its Twitter to call me a bad person? Why would I ever be sad about this? Why would I ever not be happy? Most of these games literally, in our face, hate us as people. They hate us. They call us bigots, Nazis, all of these buzzwords. Why would any one of us be sad about this?
With GTA now delayed, we won't know the truth until next autumn, though we've already seen audiences reject the new price ceiling of $80. Xbox tried to put The Outer Worlds 2 at $80, presumably buying some...
Yeah, and it failed even at $70 or whatever it sold at. It was garbage.
Headroom for Microsoft's lovely 30% profit margin demand, but they quickly reversed that decision. The inference from that? They didn't see enough pre-orders. People essentially voted with their wallet. Just that, unlike real votes, the great thing about voting with your wallet is you don't need to do anything to cast your vote. It turns out audiences just wouldn't pay that price for The Outer Worlds 2. But you know what they would pay?
Turns out, hey, what do you mean you know what they didn't pay anything? Outer Worlds was a flop.
the regular price, because selling at a normal price, the game did have a top 10 launch. Though the right product.
God. Okay, this is Billiard just chilling. This is a video of Billiard just chilling. He knows. He is smart enough. Billiard is honestly, even though I disagree with a lot of him as a person in general, kind of, and a lot of his opinions on, you know, what's that and what's that, but I do, for the most part, agree with his numbers. I do agree with his analysis, and there is absolutely no way Bellier can convince me that he is stupid enough to understand, to think that the Outer Worlds still did well, because it was in the top fucking selling list in a month where literally 2 games came out. Look at this. Battlefield, Ghost of Yotei, Pokemon. That's it. Okay? Maybe Call of Duty is also there somewhere. That's it. That's it. There's no competition. If you're even a AA development company that has some kind of backing and a marketing budget, you're making the top 10 in any month. In a normal month, in a year, there is no month where there's actually more than like 3 or 4 or maybe 5 or maybe 6 if the month is super stacked big releases. It doesn't happen. So Billiard 100% knows that the team's top sellers in a month thing is absolute garbage.
Top 10 launch. Though the right product at $80 will sell. Mario Kart World kind of proved that. Even bundled with Switch 2 for many buyers, you don't get a 92% attach rate across 9.57 million copies without lots of people shelling out the full amount. But that's only one side of this story, because the reality—
You know what I don't understand? Where are the Nintendo Mario fans? I do not see them. They exist, but where the hell are they? I don't know how to find them.
we need to dive into today is about how off-console prices have been plummeting. But there's a not so funny thing hanging over all of this, and it's the simple fact—
No.
if you've bought a game on Steam in the last 18 months, you probably paid $20 or less. In fact, you've probably been paying less since 2023
Maybe.
than you did from 2020. Now, what are these numbers? Well, these numbers are from the research of Simon Carlos, who runs the excellent Game Discover Co. newsletter. He tracked average and median prices for the top 50 new monthly games on Steam during that period of time, ranked by copy sold, and you're looking at the graphs now. We see a median price as low as $10, as high as $20, with averages between $16 and $29. Shocker, Steam users are thrifty people who like deals. We probably didn't need this much analysis to work that out, but that's not where I'm ending. Here's where things get truly interesting. From February 2023 to October 2025, the average amount of money spent on a best-selling game went down by 2%. The median, though, it went down by 20%. That means that more games are selling at a lower price. And whenever Carlos took a look at the revenue earned—
Wait, how the fuck does this graph represents that it went down by more than 20%? I'm sorry, but this looks like 3%. Okay, listen, there's... Median is sometimes useless to look at. Average, honestly, is average. If something is outside of average, a smart person will be able to distinguish that in data. Okay, you cannot... There's pretty much no way you can get the situation where the average goes down by 1% or something, and then the median goes down by 20. He misspoke. He has to have misspoke, because this is from 20... Well, this is not 20. This is like 18.5 to like 15.5, okay?
And whenever Carlos took a look at the revenue earned, the trend actually held. Now, in theory, that should favor more expensive games. They generate more revenue per sale. But even there, the median dropped from $23.75 to $20.35. That's about 14% of a drop. And do bear in mind that
Yes.
as this has been happening, the currency has been inflating. So even as players feel like they are being pressured towards $80 games, what they're actually buying is getting cheaper and cheaper. And what's key is that this is not showing us what has been offered to players, it's showing us what players have actually chosen. It's showing the best-selling premium games on the platform, and that does feel like a bit of a win, right? That we are seeing smaller teams with cheaper games beginning to dominate the sales space. That says a lot for the value of Steam, and in a world where people would have to compare the price of a full console plus a subscription for multiplayer and more expensive games, and weigh that up to a Steam machine with generally far cheaper games, well, I think it also makes the Steam machine look stronger as well. Overall, though, it's somewhat validating an argument you see all the time, right? The argument people make every time someone suggests an $80 price point, which is that you make your profit in aggregate. So make your games cheaper, and then more people will buy them. Buying 4 $20 indie games is to many people better than one $80 AAA game.
I have not heard anyone use the word aggregate in such a goddamn long time. I actually don't remember what that means. Oh my god. Buzzwords.
Surely that's what's going on. Surely that's what everyone is doing. Well, ish. Let's look more into the data. Carlos gave us the perfect example. It's the September releases on Steam, where Silksong sold like gangbusters at $20, with 4.6 million copies shifted on Steam alone. That's nearly double the sales of a full-price title, like Borderlands 4. The immediate takeaway is a lower barrier to entry at the price of a couple of copies.
Actually, let's look at this again. Copies sold, 4.7 million. Gross revenue, 75. That's before everything. You see what I mean when I say a AAA game needs like 10 million copies sold nowadays to even hope to magically break even?
Title like Borderlands 4. The immediate
And by the way, that's with a cost 4 times that, by the way. That's with a cost 4 times that.
Like Borderlands 4. The immediate takeaway is a lower barrier to entry at the price of a couple of coffees, meaning you give yourself the widest possible audience and a big game. And in theory, that also means that more people can buy more games. But it's actually not quite that simple. You see, regardless of...
No, because the exact same is true the other way around you put it. If you have a bad game and you... This is what these AAA developers are doing. We have talked about this many times. If it's true, you're going to sell more copies if you put the price lower. But if people recognize bad games, we have this magical thing called perception and, even more importantly, pattern recognition. I know these words intimidate some of you, but it is true. In any case, these big companies know if they charge $20 for their big slop game, they're not gonna sell 4 times more to justify the new price point. They're gonna maybe sell 1.5 times more. And if they sell 1.5 times more, that means that they have lost 75-ish% of the money they could have made if they kept the original price of $80. That's how the math plays out here. This is why these big companies that are slop and people complain about do use higher pricing. Because think about it in this way. Do you think Avowed or The Outer Worlds 2 would have been successful if it was $20? Maybe it would have double the sales, but double the sales from 20 to 40 is still not worth it because the original price is three times more than 20. Are you following me, boys? Are you following me, boys? Remember when I do this? Yeah, that's the thing. I'm just explaining it with words. So that's what's happening there. So they know. These companies know that if they sell their games for $20 to try and maximize players who buy it, it's never going to work. It's better to charge a higher price because otherwise no one's going to buy it anyway.
Price, the majority of game players don't actually buy that many games. Circana's Future of Games report surveyed 2,500 US players on self-reported purchase patterns.
The fucking absolute level of obnoxiousness when you're like, our sample size is N 2.5K. God, the absolute level of obnoxiousness when someone makes a post or something like that, using N is typically, by the way, the most common denominator for all of these fucking formulas. Every type of formula in statistics has a small n, by the way, to it. Pretty much when you look at it this way, the absolute level of obnoxiousness you need to exhibit to say, oh, we did a structural analysis of Call of Duty 7. The N delta was only 5, and we expected to see a delta of 6. That's big. God, the absolute level of fucking obnoxiousness is just beyond the roof. I hate it so much.
Reported purchase patterns. About a third of the market says they buy just one game or fewer a year. Just under 2/3,
hey, that's me,
63%.
Well, actually, this has been a record year for me. I have bought, I think, 4 or 5 games. I think I have bought 4 or 5. No, wait, actually, yes, 5 or 6, because I forgot about Clear Obscure. Okay? This is a record. Typically, my average year is 1 or less.
Fewer than 2 games a year. That is absolutely insane to me, but I suppose when I think about what my norms are, or maybe you do the same, we probably have a sampling bias. One that is in and around enthusiast gamers. We do buy more games, but it seems that with broader audiences, that is less the case. Now, obviously, that's Circana doing a survey of 2,500 people in the US. It's good enough work, it's hypothesis-generating work, but obviously, it is just a survey. Though I would say that when you think about games overall, a lot of it is plausible. You see, a lot of people are only interested in buying this year's sport game, or this year's Call of Duty. Well, maybe not this year's Call of Duty. Maybe they bought Battlefield instead. But the majority of any product-based industry is often people who are gently engaged in it. Not people, perhaps, like you and me, but it's actually the top of the chart that complicates things here, because those people probably aren't the ones buying indie games for $20 en masse. No, that's the other 37% of people, but even that 37% is quite stratified. 22% say they buy a game every 3 months. That's 4 games a year, and that adds up with Valve's own data. Yes, Valve's own data suggests that users played only 4 games on Steam on average in 2023 and 2024. A further 10% buy a...
That means you can quantify how much Valve earns a year. By making the average price of a game, which we can actually use this data at the start here somewhere, probably. And then timing it by 1.4, I think, is Valve's cut. Did Valve take 40 or 30%? And then times that, Valve's average monthly users times 12. And you get how much Valve actually earns in a year. And that should be pretty on point, actually.
New game monthly, which is, of course, great for an industry releasing thousands of games a year. But we need to put this in perspective. If you bought Silksong and any other game in September, 2 games in 1 month, then you are only 4% of the games market. That's kind of wild. And even if we're allowed to some swing and fuzziness because a survey is only as good as the survey, the point, I think, still does stand. And of course, it's a point that we do see in a lot of other things as well. Take whaling, right? Whaling and free-to-play games, where the majority of the revenue does come from a very small strata of that game's player base. And when we see data like that, I think we begin to understand why all of those publishers and indie devs moved their releases away from Silksong, or of course, away from GTA 6. And in the case of the indies, it would especially be because most of those indies are at the same price point or cheaper than Silksong. So if you're releasing against Silksong, a game with massive cut-through to enthusiast audiences, if you're releasing against that, then, well, you're betting on the 4% of the market turning up. that does actually buy multiple games a month. That doesn't really seem like a great strategy, does it? And here's the kicker. What if I told you there's another layer? You see, this chart does not distinguish between...
I mean, the actual layer is the fact that when you're asking people a question like this, they're gonna have some sort of bias when they answer. They're gonna be truthful with their answer, but they're probably not thinking about everything or considering everything, so I would not actually trust this that much.
New games and already released games that are on sale. Every time someone buys a game that's been out for 6 months, they're probably not buying a new game that month to go along with it, regardless of price. So, more people aren't buying games, even as prices keep trending down. Now, if that is the case, as a bunch of this data suggests, well, why then are audiences feeling like they are constantly...
Also, by the thing that he showed at the start, the prices are not actually trending down. It's just the fact that AAA is getting less appealing to the average player, and indies are taking over. That's actually the real reason why prices are trending down. It has nothing to do with about this. No. The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds still decide to be $10 less expensive. Yeah, that has nothing to do with it. It doesn't make an impact. The real reason why the trends are going down is simply because indies are currently outperforming AAA. AAA is failing on such a massive scale never seen before. There is an unbelievable amount of people exactly like me talking about, oh, how the AAA game looks bad, how it's probably garbage, how it's woke, how the story is bad, how this and that and this and that. There's a lot of people like me nowadays. There's a lot of people who listen to people like me. And there's a lot more indie games that actually worth your money nowadays than AAA games. This year especially. I mean, AAA has been decimated this year. And indies have won so unbelievably hard. And obviously, indies are going to be way less expensive than AAAs. So this is how actually all of this is panning out. AAA is not actually being less expensive. It's just less popular. This is something that I could have said at the start of the video, honestly, and saved everyone 22 minutes. But again, I trust Bellier's numbers in a lot of cases, but he still is clueless about some of these things. For example, this AAA is not less expensive. It's not going up. It's just the fact that this is an aggregate of everything. Anyway, that was Bellier 10 out of 10. Bye.